Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are so excited that you're here because we're going to talk about these complex topics in circadian biology and quantum biology and make them accessible to the everyday person. So you're in for a real treat, and we're so excited to have you here. I want to take a moment to ask you, if you're listening over on Apple or Spotify, to leave the show a review to help get it out to more people. And if you're over on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and leave us a comment or a like underneath this video to, again, help get this show out to more and more people. Please check out also the show notes if you're on audio only or if you're on video. We have them under both all of my free resources and all of Carrie's free resources. We have co-taught a course called Quantum Fertility together and actually just wrapped up the Health Transformation Summit. We will be doing another one in a few months. So we have a lot of projects we're working on together, and we have a lot of free resources for you in the show notes that we would love you to check out if some of these topics in the show are interesting to you and you want to join either one of our communities or dive deeper, get some free resources, or even take a course. Make sure to check those out. Thank you again for listening or watching, whichever one you're doing. And let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to Quantum Conversations. We are so happy to have you here. This is part 2 of our metabolism talk. And today we're talking about low leptin.
Yes. And let's talk a little bit more about fasting and intermittent fasting and maybe a circadian friendly way to do it, because I think that will tie into this low leptin conversation nicely.
Definitely. And we've had episodes on keto. We've had episodes on fasting when Dr. Sarah was here, and we kind of dove into this more, but I don't know that we've specifically delved into this issue that we're seeing with a lot more people these days with the low leptin, right?
Yes, we are. And I'm seeing it a ton more. And I think a lot of things are at play. So first and foremost, leptin, which we talked about in the last episode, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into that, is this, this hormone that docks in the brain to communicate energy availability in the body. And in general, a lot of people err on the side of having elevated leptin. Leptin is too high, which typically indicates the leptin receptor has lost sensitivity to the leptin, right? It's definitely a leptin resistance issue. And so leptin, we like to see it somewhere between, for women, we like to see somewhere between 7 and 10, 7 and 11. I mean, there's a range in there, right? But I'm seeing leptins in the 50s, 70s, 90s, right? You're really,
same, very elevated. Yeah.
Very elevated.
Yeah. And the doctors are saying oh, this is normal because you're obese. I'm like,
that doesn't mean.
I know.
Right. Okay.
I know. That's, I guess.
Yes. You have more body fat, so you've got more leptin to be able to release.
Right.
But that's not what we, anyways. Yes. I'll just pass on that discussion for a second. But that being said, low leptin is a real thing too. And the typical profile I see of someone with low leptin is someone who is metabolically looks leaner, but also perhaps has done, I've seen this a lot. Some people who have done ketogenic diets really very stringently, right? And maybe ketogenic diets plus fasting, and maybe ketogenic diets, plus fasting, plus cold plunges. And it's plus more movement. You got to get out. I got to do these, 5-mile long hikes, it's stacking a lot of stressors on the body. Oftentimes there is the need for nervous system support too, because the body is already potentially in a state where it doesn't feel like it's in a safe and peaceful healing space. And so that's where that's where I start to see low leptins that are 1.2, 1.7, 1.9, 2.1, in that range. It's a real thing. And we need to delineate here, right? Because what might work for elevated leptin doesn't always apply to low leptin. For example, if you're low leptin, I don't want you fasting, right? If you're elevated leptin and it's starting to come into range, you might be able to do some early time restricted eating, right?
Skip the dinner,
right?
Not
exactly.
the breakfast, but
exactly. And but not if leptin is low. Leptin is low. Right. Pretty much the body kind of assumes that it's in a very stressed out state of scarcity. And so in that case, you need to tell the body that it's safe and it is nourished. And the way you tell the body it is safe and it is nourished is you go outside at sunrise and you tell it the time of day. You touch the bare earth, or bare earth, touch earth is bare, but you touch bare skin to the earth so that you soak up electrons and it's an enhanced magnetic signal that geolocates you on the planet. And then not necessarily in this order, but then you also have breakfast. And breakfast is big, it's satiating, it's still quote unquote healthy, right? I'm not talking about eating a big bowl of cereal, but low leptin, I find, does respond to more healthy carbohydrates, things like sweet potatoes, things like cabbage, or adding more vegetables and stuff into that breakfast meal. And you want that meal to be satiating. So it's typically a big meal, right? You want to tell your body it's nourished, what time of day it is, where are you on the planet? Okay, I'm safe. Right. It's like those are some key safety signals that the body wants to check in the morning. And then that's over time, that pattern can really improve low leptin.
Big time. And, for me, I was low leptin, but I still had weight to lose. I was puffy, inflamed, had weight to lose. I had gained 20 pounds from this kind of like fasting, and I was carnivore for 2 years straight. And I was very dogmatic. I was not going to cheat. I was not going to go off plan. I just wasn't going to do it. But I had gotten my body into this complete metabolic disaster from not eating any carbs for 2 years and adding in fasting. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And so for me to come out of that, and I would never eat breakfast. I was never doing breakfast. I was doing making sure wear my, Fitbit, making sure I'm getting 10,000 steps a day, trying to do high intensity interval training. I was trying so hard to lose this extra weight that came on me because carnivore and fasting worked for me for a time period, took down the inflammation, made me feel better, helped my gut issues, helped so many things. Yeah. And then after a year, it stopped working, but I kept on pushing for an additional year. And I see this so often with women, especially. It's like, it worked for me for a year or however long they did it. Then the last year, 6 months, whatever, it hasn't been working. I've been gaining weight. My body is just kind of like freaking out. I don't know what to do. But
I'm going to push harder at it. But I'm going to push harder. Right.
That's what I would do. I'm going to do a 72-hour fast. I'm going to do more, I'm going to do more of this. And then I'm going to
get into deep ketosis, right? I'm not getting deep enough into ketosis or longer.
I had 6.0 ketones at one point. I remember I was doing like this high fat thing with like beef suet and a small amount of protein. I was really limiting my protein to like 60 grams of protein per day and doing like 200 grams of fat plus. And I had ketones of 6.0, and my glucose was super low too. My blood sugar was low. It was like in the 60s, like really low. I could not lose the weight. My body was like, what is going on here? And so I was in deep ketosis. I was driving myself there and I was trying to do all this stuff. And my body was just like, no, my leptin was super low when I finally tested it. And so to come out of that, I had to eat breakfast and I had to start cycling in some carbs, which was scary to me because I was like, if I eat carbs, the devil, like I've been carnivore for 2 years. Yes. Year one, I saw all these amazing things happen with my health from cutting the carbs out, but year two is like, not so much. So what's going to happen if I actually do cycle in some healthy carbs? I didn't go and eat, cakes and ice creams and cookies and candy and all that. No, it was like, if I eat some root vegetables, if I eat baked potato, if I, just these things, and my body actually was like, oh, and implemented all the circadian biology because that's part of it. Because people come to it and they're like, I've got low leptin. What do I need to eat? What do I need to put in my body? Everyone's so obsessed with the food part. They don't do the light piece. And it's like, it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer and it may not even work for you if you don't do the light stuff. And then when I did all of that consistently, I dropped 30 pounds. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's a leap of faith for people when they're kind of in that like keto and fasting and carnivore, carb restriction and carbs the devil. And it's, and it's really scary to wrap your head around that, but I've seen it work with a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not saying you're not bad mouthing the carnivore diet. We're not bad mouthing
No, not at
the
all.
ketogenic diet in any capacity. But what we're saying is long term, they don't maintain metabolic flexibility. Long term, I find them to be too big of a stressor on the majority of clients. And while they have therapeutic applications, for example, like you said, I have seen in conjunction with the circadian stuff, right? I have seen people with very severe ulcerative colitis, for example, do very well on a carnivore diet in conjunction with circadian principles, right? I've seen people with other gut issues as well. But, the majority of people, it's a temporary therapy. It's a therapy that you go through basically. And you want then to make sure you have metabolic flexibility and a gut that can digest seasonal carbohydrates, right? That is the end game.
Right.
We're not, as much as, I think that there's some big proponents out there of the carnivore diet who say you never have to eat a blueberry ever again in your life, or you never have to eat a vegetable ever again in your life. I think that we're designed to eat what we would have come across.
Yeah, you have to ask, like, is that, yeah, sure, you don't necessarily have to. You really don't have to, but is that optimal? Is that going to be the best thing for your hormones? Is it? That's the question to ask, because I was in that camp of like, no, I don't have to eat carbs ever again. And like I said, it helped me so much that I was just like scared, because I was one of those people with the gut issues. Like, my husband was just actually reminding me the other night. He's like, remember when you would get, this is kind of gross, but you would get gas to the point where you were like laying down for bed that night, and it would start and it would literally go all night and it would wake him up like all night, like wretched gas, like horror. This is like,
oh yeah, I remember that. I mean, not your gas, never smelled your gas, Sarah, but like, I get it.
What the heck? And I would just look pregnant half the time. I would like walk around with a bloated belly. I had eczema. My doctor said I had IBS, and there's not really much you can do about it. Sorry. And so I have to give props. The carnivore diet, ever since I did do it therapeutically for that time, that stuff has never come back. It never came back for me with the gas that would keep me up all night, and the skin issues, and the like bloating, and the horrible pain. I was in a lot of pain with my gut. And so I always have to say that I think the carnivore diet can be really great for that. But the thing is, once it stops working, once your body starts giving you the signals where you're storing fat,
right?
You're not sleeping, you're feeling wired.
Yeah. Anxiety is up. Your menstrual cycle length has changed.
I had no cycle.
Yeah.
Like I would go like 2-3 months with no cycle. And I was like, well, I'm almost 40. So, and then I'm like, no, that's not okay. Cause that's up to the carnivore people. Well, you're probably getting to menopause. Like, wait a minute. That's not normal to not have your period when you're like, that's not normal. So I started questioning a lot of this advice I was being given. Thank God.
Yeah. A lot of carnivore proponents are men too, like big influence. They're men, right? That they don't have that type of thing that they're tracking on a regular basis. It's like, it's different. It's different. And while these things have therapeutic potential, or I have used ketogenic diets with clients to help them become more metabolically flexible, but but always it's like, okay, now we cycle out, because you have to maintain
end goal.
It's the end goal. It's to develop metabolic flexibility. And yes, the ketogenic diet might be needed for something like epilepsy, right? Or a carnivore diet might be needed for really severe ulcerative colitis. I get that. But the majority of people need to view this as a healing modality. Even clients I've had who've gone vegan for a period of time, right? It healed some things. And then long-term, it wasn't obviously then things started popping up. So if you're at that point where things are starting to pop up after having a healing experience, you have to start questioning. It's not about doing what you're doing right now. It's not about doing it harder or more extreme, because that's absolutely where leptin starts to get deranged as well. If ketosis isn't working for you anymore, don't worry about getting into deeper ketosis. Don't worry about extended cold plunges or longer fasts. It's like, no, we have to really shift this. And if your leptin test low, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing on a regular basis that feels safe and nourishing. And it's interesting to ask people who have been on these really, challenging low leptin journeys where their leptin is low and their body is in this state of stress and scarcity. And a lot of times people don't have anything that has been nourishing them or brings them joy. It's just very much I need to do this because I see other people doing these things who technically have elevated leptin, right? I need to do these things that these people are doing. And eventually at the end game, I'll feel good like they're feeling. It's like, no, low leptin is a completely different category that we do have to make sure that we address. I know you do, but I think there's enough people out there who it just gets, unfortunately, they try to push deeper and deeper into a stress and their body gets stressed, more and more stressed. And it's not metabolically healthy. It's not developing metabolic flexibility.
Yeah. And a question I get asked a lot is like, how do I know if I have elevated leptin versus low leptin? I still have some, because they hear my story and they're like, I still have some weight to lose. How do I know if it's high leptin versus low leptin? So I'd love to hear your take on that. And then I can add.
I generally tell people to test if it went in doubt, unless they have got very classic symptoms of one or the other. And so my classic symptoms that I tend to people with in terms of low leptin are, how much intermittent, okay, let's talk about, are you intermittent fasting?
Your history.
Right. Like what's your history of intermittent fasting? What's your history of ketosis and cold plunging and these types of stressors, ketosis stressors. And, where is your nervous system at? Like, do you feel like I talk a lot about the emotional health, how one's nervous system is responsive. What's your sleep like? What's the quality of your sleep? How wired do you feel? Like these are things that in general, I can tend towards thinking low leptin, and 9 times out of 10, when someone gets their blood work done, it proves true. Whereas on the other side of things, a lot of people know when they're elevated leptin because it really feels more like classic hypothyroidy type stuff that I'll hear about, in terms of my metabolism. No matter what I do, my metabolism doesn't do anything. But so I can kind of suss it out based on symptoms. But it never hurts to do a blood draw. Just make note: if you do a blood draw, it has to be fasted. Doctors won't tell you that, nor will the blood work show that. But because
I'll have people like, I got my leptin tested. I'm like, did you? And they were like, it's really elevated. I'm like, what time of day? And did you eat something first? And it's got to be 12 to 14 hours fasted. I don't like people to go much beyond 14 hours because that can make it falsely low. And it needs to be in the morning. That's really going to be the ideal time to do it, is that morning period. And it's got to be fasted. So
because leptin signaling changes in response to what we're eating, right? The amount of leptin that gets released to get to dock and communicate changes based on what we're eating. So
someone was like, I ate like a sandwich and a soda, and then I got my leptin tested. I'm like, well, that's why it's so high. Well, it's part of why it's so high, but that is not an accurate measure. If you're testing it that way, you got to do it fast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mean, if you're someone, and a lot of times with low leptin too, yes, there's like you were talking about, there might be an additional puffiness or like an additional bit of weight that the body is holding on to, for sure. But a lot of times these individuals are also doing it because they're just trying to do things that are health supportive of their health. And they found the nutrition route, right? And they found fasting. And it's like, and yes, these modalities can be beneficial. They absolutely can be. But if you've gone in this route because you're trying to heal from anxiety, depression, an inflammatory condition, brain health, right? If you're trying to heal and you've done these things that we're talking about that we see are low leptin and it's not improving for you, things aren't improving for you, then you kind of have to rethink, right? These things might be driving your leptin even lower, and you really have to kind of re-engage with what might be beneficial for you. So
it's all about the correct signals that you're giving your body. I think that's what's the most important thing, is like, what signals are you giving your body? Does it feel safe? Does it know where you are on the planet? Does it know what time of day it is? So it can make the appropriate hormones. And that low leptin situation happens when you've been taking too many signals away from it. It's like, not eating.
Or every signal is saber-toothed tiger,
Just,
right? Right.
yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's where the nervous system work can be very helpful. I, always talk about Irene Lyon. I know you do as well. And that was one of the things that I did on my low leptin journey was her programs, was letting myself go through that nervous system work and doing that. And I think that's a key element for people in healing period that they might be missing, is like they're not looking at the nervous system piece, and they're just so, and I see this a lot with low leptin as well. It's like, well, okay, how much do I need to eat, and what are the macros, and like, should I do keto? And I've been doing keto, and I've been cold plunging, and I've been doing this, and I've been doing, and it's like, whoo, honey, like, what happened? Like, there's some trauma, some nervous system, like, were your parents unreasonable with you and had these ridiculously high expectations of you as a child that is causing you now to have all this control with what you're eating and this health behavior that you're having? Like, people have been through a lot of things, and they don't see that emotional print that's on the body, the nervous system print, as part of this overall picture as well,
Totally, totally. Again, as you said, that there could be some emotional trauma, some nervous system dysregulation. It could be the typical high achieving type A personality who just wants to go, go, go and get after it as best as they can, as quickly as possible, as perfectly as possible, right? Again. And so, yeah, in general, in a world in which I think runs fast and hot and stressful, in general, less is more. More time to really kind of just, I don't know, sit with yourselves, more meditation, more like less even information seeking, right? Because so many of us, me included, right? Guilty, love information, read, podcast, study. And it's like, we have to really, I think, pull back. And sometimes, like, my goal is to spend time every day in what would be classically called boredom, right? Because in boredom, it's just like I'm staring at the tree in the backyard and I'm just kind of letting my body just decompress and unwind. And, sometimes I get the opportunity to meditate, which is lovely as well, right? Another moment of just kind of peace and releasing the need to think and process. And it just feels good. And I just think that that's not brought into the conversation of metabolism at all either. It's all about go, 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 do, burn those calories. And I've got such a healthier metabolism doing so much less now than I ever have before. It's wild to me, but I'm a full believer.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we have to look at the whole picture. And, so I love these conversations because you and I talk to people every single day. We have our own experience with our own bodies and background. And I think that hopefully people can see the bio-individuality, but also the overarching message of us kind of needing a lot of the same things as well.
Yeah, totally. What else? Anything else that we want to talk about with low leptin? Or let's I know we talked about this with Dr. Sarah, but let's just throw this in here, right? If you're low leptin, right, I encourage 3 meals, right? And that it's a really good way to like wrap your brain around, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can lower essentially the amount that you're eating, but still nourishing foods at each meal. If you're low leptin, I like you to have carbs at most of those meals, right? And again, like, you're kind of reducing the amount. And you can still have 3 meals a day and do what we would call more of an intermittent fasting style if you space those meals about 4 to 5 hours apart. And so you're still also then taking advantage of not going to bed with a full stomach. You're still taking advantage of that extra repair that can happen at night when you're sleeping, but you're doing it in a way that takes your body into a state of rest, and it feels nourished and safe to heal, as opposed to the other way around. So I love to structure meals, make sure people are eating 3 meals a day if they have low leptin. Elevated leptin kind of depends, right? Always breakfast. And it kind of depends in terms of maybe time of year, what someone, like maybe 2 meals within a certain window of time, what the size of those meals looks like. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. But again, I hope everyone's hearing, like, it's a rare instance that I would ever say, yeah, sure, go ahead and delay, everyday intermittent fast until 2 p.m. Actually, I don't think that those words have ever come out of my mouth, frankly,
Me
in the
either.
past 5 years. So yeah, it's just, I mean, and do I every once in a while, I'm metabolically healthy. And do I every once in a while throw in fasting, like extended fast? I do. I absolutely do. But that's another, I also listen to my body with that stuff. And I want other people to listen to their bodies too. So if what you're doing is too stressful, you will notice it in things like anxiety, sleep, cravings pick back up. Your body temperature will go down. All of a sudden your hair is not going to feel as and your skin isn't going to feel as, good.
Vibrant.
Vibrant. Yeah. Your menstrual cycle will change. So pay attention to those things. And if you have a couple of those key signals, just kind of always in the brain that you're observing throughout the day or throughout the week, then guess what? You can adapt it for yourself. You can figure out, okay, well, I feel really good eating breakfast at sunrise, 4 hours later, and then fasting at night. And wow, that feels really good. Or wow, no, I feel actually really good. I have high leptin. I feel really good eating 2 meals a day. And then once you develop metabolic flexibility, which you all are doing, right? That's the end game.
Yes.
We want everyone to be metabolically flexible.
For everyone.
Then you can choose too. You can choose kind of how you want to structure your eating. I know Sarah and I, we're metabolically flexible. I still love a breakfast that I would recommend for people who have high leptin. Really low carb, rich in protein, high in fat, right? Right. It's like, that feels good to me. That feels so nourishing to me. Whereas I know other people who are metabolically flexible, they love, no joke, they love sweet potatoes with breakfast in conjunction with their healthy fats and proteins. It's fine too, right? They know what nourishes them and what feels good to them. And I know what nourishes me and feels good to me as well. And so that's the end game then, is to then understand when you're in the state of metabolic flexibility, what your body, how to eat in a way that feels supportive to your body, but also if you want to at that point, how to fast in a way that feels supportive to your body. How to intermittent fast in a way that feels supportive to your body. Like there is some wiggle room at that point. And this is kind of getting in touch with the signals your body is giving you, whether you're have low leptin or high leptin, helps you hone in on that. So once you are metabolically flexible, you can adapt to things that really suit what your body is asking for.
Exactly. And for me, now that I'm, my weight is in a good place, I don't need to lose any more weight at all. I'm good. I will have times in the month where I'm like, today is a day where I need a little bit more carbohydrate. Today, I need more root vegetables, maybe do some baked apples, do something that's a little more like carb heavy for that day. I still start my day off with a pretty much carnivore breakfast still, because it just feels the best for me. But there are days where I'm like, today I need this because I didn't sleep as well, or it's getting close to my cycle and my body is just kind of needing more energy. And so I do have those days where I will bring that in, and it helps. And it's like, oh, I feel better. I sleep great that night. I don't have hormonal issues. And it's like, yeah, I'm in tune with that. I'm very leptin sensitive. So I know how to listen to those signals, but that takes time, and that it doesn't happen in a month. It doesn't, for most people, it doesn't happen for me. I've been doing this for years now. And so I'm at this place where I'm very in touch with those signals of like, and same thing with fasting. Like you said, sometimes I'm like, I don't need to eat dinner tonight. I think a fast is, I feel like I need to do maybe a 24-hour fast. Now, again, I'm not trying to lose weight right now, so I don't really push a lot of that in. I'm like, perhaps we just need to eat dinner, but I don't get those urges. I really don't. Cool, I'm not trying to really lose weight. Yeah.
Yeah. Your body. Absolutely. Yeah. I do throw a bit of fasting in, typically around a lunar cycle in conjunction with just kind of as a time of, it really is more spiritual than weight in any capacity, right? It's like a time where I have more time to dedicate to just kind of meditating or getting in touch with that spiritual aspect of healing and health that I love to dive into. And but I was gonna do, and I don't do these all the time, but I was in the process of doing a, dare I say, 3-day dry fast. People are going to freak out by that. So that's a whole other topic. We might be able to,
totally. Yeah.
We might be able to debunk that one, but so I was in the process of doing about a 3-day dry fast. And at the 48, now it's probably like the 46 hour mark, my body was just like, that's enough.
Yeah.
go ahead and break it.
Yeah.
But I know enough about it. Like I'm in touch with
Yeah.
my body signals enough to know, okay, that was enough for my body. No more autophagy needed, nothing else. And then voila.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll revisit that again. I'll revisit another maybe fast in 6 months. Who knows, right? 8 months, 10 months, we'll see. So it's cool just kind of being in touch with your body, and instead of outsourcing to counting macros and counting calories and looking at your data trackers, right? It's like get in touch with the signals that your body is sending you. We're getting signals all the time. Our body is trying to communicate with us. We just sometimes
constantly
have to step back, and give our bodies a chance to be heard. And that does mean just checking in with your body and kind of asking it how it's doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Making space and time for that. And it for me, my final thoughts are, it starts for me with that circadian alignment and being lined up with time of day, time of year, getting that light in my eyes every morning and blocking the artificial light at night, grounding. The simple and free things have allowed me to have more intuition and be more in touch with my body than any fitness tracker I've ever spent money on, any coach, any macro tracking, any of that stuff. It has been this simple, free stuff of like, what time of day it is, what time of year it is. Does my body know? Do we know? And am I honoring that? And the more that I've strengthened that, the more that I can rely on, let's skip dinner, or let's have that sweet potato today, or let's, like I can rely upon that conversation a lot more.
Totally. I wholeheartedly have that same experience and totally love what you just said. It's absolutely the truth. So hopefully more and more people will start to kind of get in touch with that communication that's happening all the time. And it starts with circadian, and it starts with just taking the time. I think part of those practices is just kind of taking the time to step away from busyness, right? And it's an opportunity for those communications to come through as well.
Exactly. Well, this has been fun. We'll have more fun conversations ahead, so stay tuned.